Yeah, once they've tasted the food, they forget about what was there, right?
Yeah.
If they
Boom.
if they enjoy the experience, then that's all that matters.
Welcome to CK Design, Marino. Thanks for coming down for this interview today. Another episode of CK Design TV, and we're excited to have you down here on 124th Street to talk a little bit about hospitality business, and more importantly, how our two companies synergize to, I guess, deliver end results for our common clients, specifically you in the leasing and business sales, and of course our team in design,
Right.
but always focus on that great hospitality client and restaurants, some chains, some one-offs. I guess we've done it all over the years.
We've done it all. Too many almost. Or too many to count, for sure.
And you are now, how many years at Cushman?
Almost 24 years now.
24 years at Cushman.
Yeah.
So your first, you would have started there in 97-ish?
98.
98.
Yeah,
And then I met you in 99.
right.
So I've known you for almost all your career at Cushman.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Crazy. We've kind of gone through it together. Yeah.
A little bit of weight?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely.
We're
You
good.
and me together, right?
We're good on the way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited to have you sit down with me and discuss, I guess, your story, your success, your vision on the future of hospitality, and more importantly now with COVID, we know how we've seen a few pivots
Right.
and a few changes, not just how big these restaurants are, how many deals we're doing, but also the type of food service, the type of seating, the type of, I guess, the type of delivery of the product your clients are seeking, because I guess they come to you and say, Marino, this is what we're looking for,
Right.
and please find us this. Has that been a huge pivot in your business, or are we the only ones seeing it? Do you see it also in the leasing and business sales side?
Yeah, I think we've gone through a couple of different economic cycles since the late 90s, right?
Uh-huh.
So we've seen kind of things pivot on itself over the time, right? And back in the early 2000s, we were kind of in a bit of a decline still. We were kind of coming out of that recession in the late 90s.
Nice.
So what was happening was people were speculating, they were thinking ahead, they were thinking that, we're coming out of this now, maybe now is a good time to actually get involved in something. So at that time, it was kind of all over the board. There was restaurant deals that were of various sizes, right? People weren't as specific as they are now. It seemed that things were evolved, generally speaking, in terms of the types of restaurants that we see in the city. We've progressed dramatically as far as the types of cuisines and ethnicities that we've had.
That's widened.
It's
like we're
widened
seeing a lot
big
more.
time, right? So back then, it was still a little bit more mainstream, still a little bit more
Steak and pizza, yeah.
steak and pizza,
Meat and potatoes, we call it.
and variations were minimal at best, right?
I like it. I like the variation.
Yeah, I think at that time you could probably count the number of East Indian restaurants on two hands.
And now we got lots.
You know,
So you are finding that they're getting smaller. Did COVID make them even smaller or not yet?
Yeah, I mean, we saw kind of a push to downsizing
Okay.
in terms of size, just generally overhead, right? A lot of guys were not able to take advantage of the restrictions because of the type of business that they had, where it's more sit-down dining versus takeout
Okay.
and delivery, right? Some have pivoted quite well, and
others
others
haven't, yeah.
didn't, based on their cuisine, based on their concept. So we have seen, recently, obviously last couple of years, that the sizes have decreased, and I think that's generally speaking, COVID didn't help, right?
Okay.
Because
That just added to it.
it just added to the stress and the economic factor of the bottom line, right?
And higher rents obviously push people to smaller spaces.
Right.
That makes sense. Do you know, perhaps we can start, because speaking of COVID and all the pivoting that we've done as a design firm and what you just touched on, maybe we can start with, I guess, a couple of your more recent deals that you've done. I know one that popped up during our pre-video chat was Stanhope
Right.
on Calgary Trail.
Right.
And then the other one is Blueberg in Windermere.
Correct.
Tell us on, what is that trend? I see the trend, the way I've identified it, obviously you're the first in line, is we're taking over old established restaurants where the lease runs out, they do not renew, and then these guys are jumping in. What are you seeing?
Yeah. I mean, again, as we talked about just a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
the trend recently has been to downsize and to keep things simple and I guess just keep their overhead costs down.
Yeah.
These kind of buck the trend because both of these examples that we were talking about are very large footprints, right? We're talking 6,000 square feet plus.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
You know.
I know Bluebird's quite large.
So because of that, people are saying, well, we're not going to see those types of restaurants anymore. It's post-COVID era. We're not going to see the bounce back of these larger scale dine-in restaurants. And I totally disagreed with that. I knew that even through the pandemic that, look, this pandemic thing, no matter how long it lasts, is not going to last forever. We're going to rebound. We're going to return to a sense of normalcy with maybe some changes, but at the same time, people still want to go out and dine. There's something to be said about going into an establishment where there's lots of people, there's electricity, there's an entertainment factor, an experiential factor that you just can't get by taking chicken and going home and eating it in front of your TV.
No, and you just can't replace that entertainment value of eating out.
Exactly.
And then that brings to mind two things. A, I want to touch on 3 Red Robin jobs that we've seen go dark and what has transpired. So we have Windermere turned into a full new restaurant that we worked on called Blowers in Grafton.
Right.
Then I have one on 106 on the south side that I understand is getting demised.
Right.
And then we have a Bulldoze on 104 Ave in Oliver. So those are 3 unique buildings. They all have their own, I guess, age and shape and size. But look how many things you can do. You can either take it as is, cut it up, or knock it over.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a bit of a trend in terms of the dynamics of trying to figure out what to do with some of these properties. Some are very easily exchangeable into something else. Some have pivoted into a variation or a different restaurant concept. And then there's the one that's thinking outside the box, which is what can we do, which is the highest and best use for a piece of land.
For that, that's right.
For example, the one Red Robin that you just mentioned downtown on 104.
Yeah, the one that they scraped, yeah.
Yeah, they decided that they were going to build a multifamily there.
To better use of the land.
Better use of land. It's central. It's in high demand.
Transit hub.
Yeah, there's lots happening right in that area. So it was a better use rather than try to retrofit the existing restaurant, which was aged and probably needed a lot of work and a lot of money spent to bring it up.
And in your gut feelings, I know you're not a designer, but your gut feeling on the real estate side, when I rebrand a box that had a name on it, do you think patrons are unnecessarily too attached to that box and the fact that it was a Red Robin or the fact that it was a Sorrentino's, or do you think people quickly with a new sign, new decor, move on?
Yeah,
What
I
have you
think
seen?
I think that's partially important
Okay.
to the tenant, right? That he makes the switch.
On the exterior side, because inside we do it,
Yes.
but exterior I noticed some people just change the sign. I don't know if that's enough.
Yeah, I think unless it's it's an iconic look, like a Pizza Hut building, which has
Or it has architecture, pizza architecture.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you know people's memories, they may be long, but they forget things like that after a time. Most people, I bet you, if you ask people about the Stanhope building, which was the former Sorrentino's,
Which was a former Joey's.
right? But if you ask people
Wow.
today that are going to Stanhope, what was this originally? They'd probably say, "Oh, it was Sorrentino's," but no, it wasn't. It was Joy Tomatoes, right? So,
That's
the
exactly
memories,
what you mean. Yeah.
the memories change, right? And,
I know you did a Chili's job, right? There's a Chili's at Windermere at the theaters.
Correct.
That became Vivo.
Right,
Now it's a Greek Taverna.
right,
That again, people just like the interior is totally new,
yes.
but the exterior, I think, no need to.
It's
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not iconic that you look at it and go, well, that's a Chili's.
That's a good
right?
point.
So I think that people get away with the exterior a little bit more, right? The interior is different because if you go in, you have an experiential, dining experience based on what the decor looked like, and you remember that, right? You're going to remember the interior more. So I think that's more important to spend more time and focus on changing that.
That's a really good share for our viewers. I think a lot of, I get that a lot. So when our clients ask us to pick one of the two or pick one of the three, they're worried. Where were we worried? Oh, we did a Starbucks turned into chicken with you. Were people worried that it was a Starbucks? And quickly, the last thing I think when I approached the building is that there was a coffee shop.
Right.
Like I know it's a chicken place now, right?
Yeah, once they've tasted the food, they forget about what was there, right?
Yeah.
If they
Boom.
if they enjoy the experience, then that's all that matters. Right?
Okay. I like it. Where did this all begin for you? Because I know you said you started in 98.
Yeah.
Like, why real estate? Like, how did you... Because obviously there may be a degree in real estate.
Yeah.
I'm not, correct me or educate me. But how did you go, like, was it Cushman first? Or tell our viewers what got you into the biz?
It was purely accidental.
No way.
Right? I mean,
Not a job ad.
I don't think a lot
Accidental.
of people go to university and say, I'm going to get into commercial real estate.
Mm.
You know, it's not a kind of an end goal when you're going through school, right? It's you've got certain degrees, certain things that you try to do. I went to the University of Alberta and got a degree in education.
Oh, you're a U of A grad.
Right.
Awesome.
Right, and my degree was in education,
Mhm.
biological sciences of all things, right?
Nice.
So my intention from day one was to go out and be a teacher, but
No way.
it never happened.
Okay.
Right? Because when I got out of school, the boards at that time weren't hiring very much. So I decided, well, am I going to either be a substitute for 2 years and hope to get a full-time job, or look for something else? So I turned left versus right and went down a path that got me into financial consulting, management consulting, and that transpired into the opportunity with commercial real estate. So it was purely just an osmosis of time that got me there.
That's a good story. You never look back.
Yeah.
And then it was Cushman from day one?
Yeah, at that time it was called JJ Barnaky.
Correct. That's how I remember. I have one of your cards.
Yes.
I like that JJ.
Yeah. So
JJB.
that was the original firm,
Yeah.
and then we changed brands as we went. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're very loyal. You
Yeah.
stayed.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy from day one.
Yeah.
We had a great group of guys. It's obviously a lot larger now in terms of the firm.
Yeah, you're a 100-person firm
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah.
And partners have changed because everybody retires, right?
Yeah.
Good for you,
But
man.
you know, everybody's grown, and we've expanded and done very well, and always been happy there. So no need to move.
And then I've known you since, like I said, 99. Slowly, I found out that you like the restaurant and retail world. I like that as well. I guess today you're well known across Alberta as business leasing, restaurant sales. How did that come to be? Like, because I think you arrived in 98 at JJ Barnaky. What triggered you to become a restaurant guy?
It kind of pulled me in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, kind of like the mafia.
No way. Because
know?
you didn't grow up in the restaurant business. Your parents aren't restaurateurs like mine. Okay.
No, but I did have a lot of
Family,
friends
yeah.
and family that were involved in one form or another.
So you're familiar
So
with the biz.
yeah, so you know, it kind of pulled me in. They pulled me in that direction just through trial and error through the business. When I first got into the business, and I was an assistant for one of the original partners,
No
we
way.
did office leasing in the first 2 years.
Come on, so you've tried office.
Yeah,
Good.
so we did that, but you know, there was always something pulling me in that direction, and it happened to be a lot of just the original contacts that I had through the industry, and got to do a few restaurant deals from the get-go, and kind of liked it, and found it sexy, and kept going in that direction. So
there wasn't a mentor there. It was just you.
yeah, not specifically. I mean, there's a lot of guys in our office that do retail, and,
Yeah.
and a lot of them dabble in the restaurant business, and have
Because
done a
it's
fair
retail.
amount.
Yeah. Same
Yeah.
landlords, typical.
Yeah.
I like that. And then so I've worked with you since 1999. I think Marshall Wolski introduced us. Over the years, you continue to hone your craft, your skills in the business. I know I have. I've also created my own hacks and my own secrets, like my behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe you could share with our viewers some of yours. What are some of your trade secrets with regards to what makes a perfect Marino restaurant sale?
You know, it's there's no real formula to it,
No way. Okay.
because every situation is different.
Okay.
I mean, you can talk some generalities and say, you know, certain things need to line up for it to work. You need obviously the right tenant or the right buyer for the right space. You know, those things got to match up. But that's a lot of just matchmaking, right? They have a requirement, they have a want or a need. You find that want or need and you match it together, right? That's the easy part. The hard part is to try and understand conceptually whether or not what they're doing makes sense for them and the landlord or the seller, right? And sometimes we have to lead them down the path a little bit by the hand,
Okay.
because not everything is so black and white when it comes to understanding what's going to work and what's not going to work. And my role over the years changed. You know, in the beginning it was very transactional only, right? Where, you know, let's find a space, let's find a place to buy, let's do the deal.
And the lease.
And the lease,
Yeah.
right? But over the years, I've found my role changing to more of a consultative process.
Yeah,
where
you're hand-holding them.
I'm helping them go from start to finish. And what I mean by that is not only find them a location or a space to occupy, but helping them with the process of getting the lease done, dealing with the landlord, dealing with lawyers, dealing with the financial institutions, dealing with the city, dealing with insurances, AGLC, all of those bodies,
Wow.
right? There's a lot of moving parts.
And sometimes it's new to them,
Right.
but you're old school, so you know everything, right?
Right. You learn as you go. I mean, I honestly can tell you that in the beginning,
You were new too.
I didn't know any of this, right? So
We're all new.
I've learned through trial and error a lot of it,
Yeah.
right? And with the helps of people like yourself and other specific professionals, we were able to kind of put together kind of a unit and move forward with these groups and help them kind of ease through the bumps of getting to the finish line.
I like that. And then when we first started working, it was traditionally a lease deal. So you would introduce me to clients looking to build a new restaurant,
Yes.
and vice versa, because I have clients looking for space and then they come to you. Now it's now you've ventured hardcore into the restaurant business sales aspect. Tell me more about this angle and what possibly makes a winning deal for both parties, because I find that on one side you got a buyer who's shopping. There could be 2-3 options.
Right.
And on the other side you got a seller who has a lease, doesn't want to walk away from their space because they're trying to get some money for the interiors.
Yes.
And they're obviously selling a lease. So what's that perfect marriage? What's the win-win for both?
A win-win for both is when they're both not happy,
Okay.
At the
So
end.
traditional.
right? It's true, because I mean, you know, if you're the seller,
Yeah.
your restaurant's worth $1 million. If you're the buyer,
Over value typically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel
if you're the
when they call
buyer,
me.
it's worth $1, right? So
That's
I
a
mean,
big difference.
yeah. So I mean, it's about merging and
Yeah.
bringing the two together, compromising. But at the end of the day, most sales are where both sides feel like they probably didn't get exactly what they wanted out
Okay.
of it, right? So
So they left something on the table.
Yeah. So if they're both a little bit unhappy, then that's kind of the perfect situation, right?
Okay.
Because if you make one side happy, the other side's not happy, for sure, right? So
And then what are you telling your buyers, and because I think you do both sides,
Yeah.
what are you telling your sellers post-pandemic now to prepare for when listing? And what are you telling your buyers post-pandemic to expect when approaching a business? Any tricks there?
Well, I mean, COVID's really done a number on us, because
Wow.
the values of these restaurants. I mean, in most cases, it's it's based on fixtured assets and value of equipment and leaseholds that are in place, right? Very rare now are we selling the business with the brand and the name.
Okay, so name stays off.
Yeah, because in most cases, it seems like, especially in the last few years, people have their own concept, their own branding, their own ideas.
Just want the space
Right?
and the
They just want the
exhaust,
hard
washrooms, yeah.
assets, exactly. So there's not a lot of goodwill, not a lot of branding attached to it. I mean, there are a few of those that we've done, but overall, it's been mainly just asset sales.
Okay.
And so when that happens, of course, they have, and when I say they, I mean the seller has to come to a reality that their value is not what they think it is, right? Because it's depreciated value. And it's like driving the car off the lot, right? It just depreciates immediately.
That fast.
Yeah.
Formula for that or no? Like if I have a 6,000 square foot restaurant, it costs me, let's say, $250 to build. Like where is the formula? If I got X to build, how do you list it? Like how do you come back? Is it only based on sales? Is it sales minus kind of the investment? Like how do you determine the restaurant
yeah,
price?
there's some different formulas we
Okay.
use, right? One, of course, is strictly assets.
That's it.
Right? Leaseholds. This is the value. This is how old they are.
Okay.
We do a depreciation value based on that. Other times when we are factoring in sales, that could help in terms of boosting the price somewhat, because people can say, hey, you know what? I'm buying more than just the assets. I'm actually buying key money, location as well, right?
So busy restaurant could command more.
Correct.
Really?
Because if the location's great, if you change the concept, chances are, you're still going to get that traffic flow and take advantage
that.
of where you are, right? So there's a bit of a combination there. And if we're doing strictly, a business sale where we're truly selling the business with the assets, then of course we do the EBITDA formulas where we're taking their net profits and doing a
Minus
multiple
that.
factor and coming up with a value of an existing business as a transition.
And most landlords do not want an empty space.
No.
So then they're keen on getting brand A out and brand B in.
In most
brand
cases.
B could be new.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of new entrepreneurs getting into the business post-COVID.
Yeah.
What do they do for covenant? How do
You
they
know,
come to the table?
It's funny because prior to COVID,
Yeah.
landlords were a little bit more rigid as far as
so it's
what
softened.
what they needed or required from their new tenants, right? They made them jump through a bunch of hoops, just kind of like the bank does. In some cases, landlords are even more rigid than the banks, believe it or not. We found that softened,
Now,
probably the
with
best
this funding.
word, softened over the last 18 months or so, because they're realizing, hey, you know what? We don't have a lineup of people wanting the space. And, the fear for them is if they have a dark space or potentially dark space, it's going to hit them in their bottom line too. So landlords are being a little bit more forgiving as far as their traditional requirements to approve a new tenant or a new buyer. So it's helped that way because it's probably prompted a lot of new brands popping up, right? A lot of independents have opened up. In the
A
last
lot. I've seen a huge increase.
Yeah, which I think is good. I think it's good for the industry as a whole because, there's always going to be chains and brands and familiarity with that, and everybody continues to, patronize those businesses. But it's nice to see the independent side or the regional, local side of the business flourish. And I think that's kind of the silver lining in the COVID era is that we've created a scenario where these independent businesses can now thrive.
And that's contrary to the trade magazines, trade websites. What we noticed, because it's been 20 plus months now, right? So as the trade magazines came out month by month by month, they would always comment on, how detrimental this is, how many restaurants are closing, how many are going dark, blah, blah, blah. And then they would also pick up on who's winning this death race. And chains did very well.
Right.
Chains flourished under COVID. Chains put out, they had their delivery, they had the drive-through, they had the skip the dishes, whatever they had. Yeah. They seem to have done very well through this crash. So then I thought, post-COVID, the rush to get more space would be chains. And we're noticing, you and I, our deals here in Edmonton, the opposite. We're seeing some fantastic humans, restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, families, because they're various groups have stepped up to take over these dark restaurants. And I'm very impressed. And these new entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're going to probably see more chains either downsize or get out of the markets, especially the ones that are multiple brand.
Yeah.
Right?
They'll close a few.
Yeah, we've seen some big conglomerates trim the fat, so to speak, and get rid of some of the branding or brands that aren't performing as well as they should. So you're seeing spaces like the Red Robins, the Swiss Chalets, even the Starbucks of the world.
That'd be the trimming you see.
Right? They're trimming, and there's a reason they're trimming.
And right sizing it, I guess.
Right, exactly. Okay. So those are opportunities for, independents to come in and take those. We don't see other chains taking their spaces, though.
No, I don't see that.
Which is very interesting. Yeah.
And do you think that's a trend from your perspective? Because you have a unique one. You see it kind of really high up, where I'm closer to the ground because typically I get a sniff of a job after you've heard of it. So from your unique perspective, where does that lead us in the future? Is this a continuation of smaller brands more local, more. What you hear about even on the radio is Black Friday the other day, a Cyber Monday today. We're seeing people talk a lot about shopping local. People don't consider food shopping,
Right.
but eating local. Do you think that local thing can thrive and continue to thrive? How will it affect all ranges of restaurants? Because we have fast food, which is pretty rarely local,
Yes.
all the way to fine dining, which is most commonly local.
Yes.
And then our hotels have been affected by this, which is the other side of the hospitality coin.
Yeah.
Where is this going with the restaurants first? And we'll talk a little bit about sleep
Yeah.
after, like hotel business.
I think I call it the circle of life.
Okay.
In the restaurant business, right? We're seeing a prominent amount of independents come up, and some of those independents are going to become regional chains
I see.
and grow and be successful and get to a point where, guess what? A conglomerate will come and knock on their door and buy them out.
Buy 'em up.
Right? This is kind of what happened with a lot of trends, maybe 20, 30 years ago. There was a lot of, especially in the East, there was a lot of brands that
Where
were
they merge.
regional.
M&A, okay.
Yeah, and then these conglomerates come by and knock on their door and say, hey, we're interested in picking up your brand. So I think we're at that initial stage again where you've got a lot of guys who have some great concepts that are implementing them. You'll probably see over the next 5 to 8 years those brands grow either locally or even regionally.
And then they
And
get
then-
swallowed.
And then they get swallowed.
Oh, okay.
Somebody will come along and write them a nice big fat check, and they can simply say thank you and walk away. And
That makes sense.
And then the chain takes over, and hopefully they do a good job with that chain.
Yeah, we saw that with,
restaurant.
well, you're familiar with one of our clients, Original Joe's.
Yes,
State Maine, Elephant Castle, that was all
yes,
moved over to recipes, so that's a good point.
yes.
And
Absolutely.
it happens, right?
Correct.
The on the hotel side, we haven't seen that. So although they're suffering, although they've had very low occupancy, my clientele is sticking to the flag. Our hotel clients believe that that's the way out. Where is that? Why aren't we seeing the same in the hotel business where, they're dark, they're for sale, and then a mom and pop picks it up? Is it just too big of a nut? Where do you think that doesn't match the restaurant side?
I think there's a difference between trying a new restaurant and trying a new hotel.
I see.
Right? I think people want to have the familiarity of knowing that, hey, if I'm going to this particular hotel, it's being operated properly and they're sanitizing and
Consistency, points,
you know,
maybe. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? Yeah, there's brand loyalty for sure.
Way more than restaurant loyalty. Isn't that
Absolutely.
amazing?
Because when people travel, I think they like the familiarity of knowing that there's a brand that they're comfortable with,
I see.
no matter where they go. I don't think you'd find that as much in the restaurant business. I mean, sure, you can go to McDonald's here and you go to McDonald's in the States or overseas, and you pretty much know what you're getting, right? Same thing with the hotels. You would tend to think that there's consistency among their brand no matter where you go.
And maybe the mom and pa's left for the Airbnbs of the world, where it's more,
Yeah, and that's a whole nother
Like
bracket
that's-
of
yeah.
hospitality that's emerged. Over
but
the
less
last-
branding there, right? It's
Definitely
more of a
less
personal product
Yeah.
on an app.
Yeah, and the people that are going to the Airbnbs are not the guys that are loyal to a particular brand of hotel anyways, because that's not their cup of tea. They're
No, that's
looking
not
for
your
something
married
more
guy, yeah.
unique,
I see.
right? Yeah,
That guy's sticking to his brand, getting his points.
yeah.
He or she wants to be comfortable and safe, and the repetition and the what's it called, just that loyalty to what they've come to expect from the
Exactly.
brand. I agree with you. There is a what we do here on the show is talk a little bit about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, and so eager to hear from you. We talked a little bit about your past, where we are today with the pandemic and post-pandemic. What does your business runway look like for the next 10 years, and where would you like to be? What would your BHAG be, if you want to share that with us?
Yeah, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, I think this is an exciting time for our business because it is kind of a launching pad for new growth, right? As I mentioned earlier, the silver lining of this COVID crisis has been the emergence of this whole new chapter of growth in terms of new resurgences of brands and necessarily, individuals that are looking to get back into the business if they've gotten out. So it's exciting that way because I think we're going to see a lot of interesting things happen over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's bode well for me because, I like to go along for the ride. And, I always find it exciting to do things with groups that are emerging, right? Because to see their
watch the growth.
success,
Yeah.
right? Because if they're successful, then I'm successful. And it makes me feel rewarded. It's beyond just making $1 on a deal. It's about seeing somebody launch and be successful. And, to me, that's almost like, a kid, right? That you get them to witness all their milestones in life. And it's kind of the same thing with the restaurant guys. Guys that I went to school with, guys that I've known for years that are starting to make their mark in the industry. It's great to see. I'm happy for them. I'm excited for them, right? So that's very rewarding for me. Because if I'm able to help them along the way, it's great.
Yeah, because like you said, it's more than just the financial reward for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's a fitting BHAG, is to continue to see your brand grow and see the people around you profit from your knowledge and your expertise and your stick handling of their lease or restaurant purchase deal. And there's a lot of examples that you've worked on. Any of those, like, will we see you opening a restaurant? Will we see you investing in any of these chains, or something that you're cooking? You share with us, or you're going to
I've thought
stay
about that.
arm's length whack?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, I see the successes, but I also see the failures. And, it's already emotional for me, not even being involved directly with these guys. And I couldn't even imagine personally being involved on a day-to-day basis with
running
a restaurant, only because as you say, I kind of like to see it from above.
Yeah.
And
in and out.
And help.
Yeah.
And assist versus trying to slug it out.
Or operate so be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And
that's just me, right? I mean, I think I've chosen my path in life, and I'm happy, and next 5-10 years, I don't see that changing.
Yeah, because you're a great patron. Like, I don't think we have consultants that do what they do and then they just go home. I find you to be out a lot and, obviously giving back.
Right.
And supporting all of your clients. I think that's why they love you, because you're just around for them. And not just, the other thing that I see you doing a lot of is keeping in touch with these people post-opening. Just so, once the ink dries, you're not gone, MIA, right? Yeah. You're there to help them, because there's others that pop up, and I think they are looking for that consultant, not just on the design side, but even on their deal, to help them stick handle some of the unexpected issues that might pop up in the parking, leasing, signage, drive-through issues, and you're good for that.
Right.
You stick with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I know that over time, something's going to change in their lives, right? Yeah. Whether they decide to expand their concept,
do another
change their concept, sell their concept. Happy to help. I'm there to help. If I can assist in terms of doing those next transitions, then I feel like I'm assisting them beyond the opening of the restaurant, right? So it's a good thing.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.